Hello and welcome to today's Tiger webinar. I'm Lydia Palmer from RIT's Division of Development and Alumni Relations, and I'm your moderator. We are happy to have you join us today and hope that you and our entire Tiger family are well and continue to weather this new working environment to the best of your ability. We want you to know that the RIT Office of Alumni Relations is available to help all RIT alumni with a variety of needs, including new virtual content, learning opportunities, and networking and career assistance as our workplaces and our world work through the new normal of pandemic realities. We especially encourage everyone to connect to the RIT Alumni Association social media channels, including Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter, where you will find up-to-date communications and opportunities to connect to other Tiger alumni in your region and your industry. Those links are found in the chat box, and the chat box can be opened by clicking on the chat tab at the right of your webinar window. Many in our RIT family have asked how they can help our students and the university as we respond to the pandemic, and we are very grateful for those offers. There are two ways you can help. First, our new graduates and current students are seeking positions for full-time careers and co-ops. Many of these positions were delayed or canceled entirely. If your company is hiring or would consider adding a co-op post, please contact Chris Steeler in RIT's Career Services Office and allow her to post that position in our systems. In addition, there is now an unprecedented need for financial aid scholarships for current and incoming Tiger students. If you are able, please make a gift at the link in the chat box, and we thank you so much. We want to ensure that everyone is ready and familiar with the presentation tools. If you are joining from a remote location and are currently signed into your company's VPN, we encourage you to close that channel during the webinar to increase the quality of the transmission. The webinar platform is secure without VPN. All attendees have joined in mute mode. However, your questions can be entered in the chat box at any time throughout the discussion. We'll make every effort to address all your comments and questions throughout the webinar. You are joining this event using broadcast audio. If you wish to dial in by phone, dial-in information is provided in the chat box. Live captioning is also being provided, and you can find the link to access that in the chat box as well. This webinar will be recorded and made available, complete with captions, in approximately 1 week following today's event. All participants will receive an email with the link to the recording. If you have any technical questions, please feel free to type those into the chat box as well, and we'll do our best to get you the appropriate answers. And now on to our webinar. We are pleased to welcome RIT alumnus Zoran Pejović. Zoran is a hotelier, entrepreneur, public speaker, opinion writer, and a world traveler currently based in Croatia. His hospitality career spans 2 decades, 3 continents, and all of the seas. Zoran graduated from RIT Croatia in 2004 with a B.Sc in Hotel and Resort Management. In 2016, he embarked on his RIT's Master of Science program in Service Leadership and Innovation. He co-owns the famed wine and cheese bar Paradox in Split, Croatia, voted best wine bar in the world in 2019 by Hideaway Report. He is about to open Maslina Resort under his Paradox Hospitality umbrella. Maslina Resort is a Relais and Chateaux luxury boutique hotel on the island of Hvar, which was voted best island in Europe by Conde Nast Traveller in 2020. Zoran consults on a number of hospitality projects ranging from hotel conceptualization and development to crisis communication and management. Zoran, it is our pleasure to welcome you today, and our audience is all yours.
Thank you very much for such a lovely introduction. It's a true pleasure to have this opportunity to get together with a fellow alumni. I am here at the island of Hvar, and as Lydia said, we are very proud always to mention that it is considered one of the most unique places in the world. It's the sunniest island in Europe. We boast 6 different UNESCO protections, and I am personally about to open a first 5-star luxury resort on the island in a slightly unfortunate time of the post-corona world, or at least we are hoping that it is becoming a post-corona world. I guess we are still in the pandemics. We are treating it a little bit here like it's already gone. But because this audience is quite diverse and coming from different parts of the world, I'll try to, and also there are people who are coming from a hospitality background and those who are not coming from hospitality background and perhaps are looking to hear how they should look into travel and tourism as guests and travelers. I will try to offer some insights first and foremost as a provider, as an operator, but also I'm sure that there will be a lot of information for those who look to travel in this world afterwards as well. So we're gonna slowly move on to the presentation and to the topic of post-corona travel and tourism. Okay, so this is probably the most seen photo of the last 3 months. This image of the microscoped image of coronavirus. It is something that has really changed our lives in ways we did not anticipate. I mean, I certainly have not anticipated anything like this, even though there were some very smart people out there who said that something like this could happen, but we just all pretended that we are kind of immune to these kind of global events. I personally have been through many crises. I mean, the wars in the 90s in former Yugoslavia and some other personal crises, but this is really a crazy global event that has brought the entire, especially the developed world, to a halt. And I really hope nothing similar ever happens in our lifetime. What is interesting to observe is that the two only true global activities, travel and trade, have come under a lot of scrutiny. I mean, trade has continued more or less with some disruptions, but has continued because we live in such connected world that it was almost impossible for the trade to stop. But travel has come to a complete standstill, and all of us in the travel industry have kind of tried to figure out, okay, what's next, what to do now. And this is something that I'm sure you've all heard. If you're in the industry, you've heard this thing: we are all in this together. Well, I would like first to address that saying. Yes, we are all in this together. We are all in this together in terms of fall. We all fell down together. The whole world has gone down together. However, when it comes to recovery, we will not be all in this together. And it's something that I think really needs to be brought a little bit more forward to light, because the world is recovering, but that recovery will be very, very, very local and destination specific. And perhaps because there are so many people from different countries listening to this, that might be listening afterwards and are looking and thinking, okay, how is this going to affect my business if this global event will have this V-shaped recovery? I think it will not actually happen in such a way for every single destination. So what you want to look for your own destinations, you want to see the reputation of your country coming out of the crisis, and it's going to be something that's probably more important than ever. Then you're going to probably want to see how your country is dealing with the health and safety standards, and in what way they will affect your business, and how difficult they will make it for travelers to enter the country, how clear those instructions will be. Currently, we are seeing, for example, a lot of noise in the communication, a lot of unclear instructions on how we can actually cross the borders, who can get on the plane, who can move between countries and things like that, who can go from which country to which country. So we really need to see the clarity of those things, and your particular countries where you're based at and your businesses are based at, you really need to pay close attention to those instructions and to the clarity of those instructions, and how will they impact your business in terms of things that you will need to put in place in order to move your business forward. And then the third thing that you will probably want to look at is the level of interventionism that your government is doing in order to bring businesses, especially the airline, back to the countries where your businesses are. And this is also obviously not just for the operators, but also for the travelers. I mean, I'm sure those of you who are considering to travel, you will be looking at the reputation of a country a bit more than you would previously. You will be looking at the healthcare system in the country where you will be going to, and you will be looking at the kind of ease of entering into the country. All right, so that's one of the points that I really wanted to bring forward, of saying that while the fall has been global, the recovery will be very, very much local. What was something that I realized as we were going through the crisis, and it's also interesting because I mean, if we have here, I see already people saying hi from United States. You guys were a couple of weeks behind us, nearly a month. I think because especially by the time it really hit you hard, and I have seen how it was interesting. It took everybody a while to figure out what is really going on, and a lot of people were pretending until very late that nothing is going on. And then once it hit really hard, people were so shocked, so they completely lost their voice. And I started from day one screaming at everybody, stay visible, communicate, and really tried to encourage people to continue communicating, because it's there is no recipe really what to say these days, or there was no recipe what to say 2 months ago, same today, depending on where you are at. But you still want to keep that communication going on. And I mean, you have built your own businesses if you're a business provider, and you really have your partners who trusted you to begin with, and I'm sure that they will continue trusting you afterwards. And you really kind of want to keep that openness and sincerity going on, and really keeping it as honest as possible. And for those of you who are still struggling to kind of find your voice, I mean, I just encourage everybody to continue using even social media, or different other types of different media, or just calling people, which is probably the simplest possible way of making communication. It's still available, just picking up a phone. But I guess we have, for example, for my particular business, we have really slowed down for 2 months or 2.5 months promoting the hotel or the restaurant or the businesses as such. So we were just promoting life in our small communities, and promoting some stories of the local heroes, and supporting the efforts of people who were putting so much into solving this crisis, and also promoting very much the importance of mental health, and eventually, probably the nice thing that I think we sent out to the world, and I think those are the nice stories that you can find out, is the telling just a nice dream, because people still want to dream, and people want to hear nice heartfelt stories, as long as they are short, honest, and one thing that I really kept on pushing as a message towards the community, and I really think that the travelers noticed this, for all those businesses that have done the same, is dropping the corporate language. Really keeping it simple and honest, and without the big corporate structure, as it was previously very much in place. So in that sense, the world of public relations and communications have changed much. So that's why I kind of try to point out these ideas of communicating, but being mindful about that communication, because literally everybody in the world is hurting, and you can ask for help, you can offer help, and that's something that people really appreciate. And this is another little image that is kind of has stuck in my mind. We have started shaking hands here on the island of Hvar and hugging. We just said, okay, that's about it. But we prior to that, for 2 months, for example, I was by myself here in the apartment, 8 to 10 weeks, and I have just used this type of communication instead of shaking hands and hugging. And I just thought it was quite amazing, because we managed to keep it alive, over all of this time. All right, so once you have, again, I'm talking mainly to the people in the industry, business owners, operators, about the ways to move forward in this situation. And I really thought for my own businesses, and I wanted to share that also with the fellow entrepreneurs and business owners, but also with the travel community. Is what you do is you really try now to build scenarios, and at any given point moving forward, you might feel like you are very late with the decision making, and you might feel the urge to sort out things as soon as possible, because this idea that you can't really do anything about your current situation can be really devastating, especially for people like myself who have very much entrepreneurial minds, feeling that everything is outside of our control. But what you can do is really work on, as I said, build on scenario planning, looking at the most optimistic and most pessimistic outcomes and drawing different scenarios based on that, and that at least can help you see where the future will go. And this is now coming to something that we actually get together to talk today about, is the predictions. And these building the scenarios is really not in prophesizing the future, is actually understanding in which ways the future can move on. And for me, the two most important aspects in determining and building scenarios were when the crisis will be over. Whether it's going to be in a month, in 3 months, in a year, 2 years. So the time aspect of it, and whether the borders will remain open for travel after the crisis is over. So I really devised 4 basic scenarios that have helped me throughout this crisis. And I think, again, as for any other business, this can be helpful, and even for travelers themselves. But really thinking, okay, the best possible scenario is that literally in a month everything is over and the world goes back to the way it was before we all travel normally. And the worst case scenario, this goes on for another 2 years, and after that we just go back to some kind of world with the thorny borders, where you can't really cross between countries without some special passports and special permissions. And that's really something that that would change the face of travel. So, and anything in between. So if you work on these things, it might really help you understand where things will move on. The second thing that I have been working on, and I was encouraging others, was really to protect the cash flow a little bit, to the point where you don't destroy your chances to bounce back, but then again, even more so to look after your teams and your people, both personally and professionally. And this is the point where a lot of companies that were not built around the common culture and shared purpose really suffered a lot. So this was really a time to figure out whether what you're doing actually has some purpose some purpose or not. Another thing is that as you are moving through this, as you're moving through this period, is really to think about importance of we are all hoping that things will be better, and I think that's very natural. People who know me, they know that I'm very much a psychology buff as well. So obviously hope is internally, we are internally wired to hope for the best. But when it comes to business, really, I don't believe that it's good to rely on hope, because it's not a good business strategy. Yeah, it's true that it will not be like this forever. However, we really can't rely on hope itself, and you really want to start looking at your businesses and again, from the perspective of the consumer, of the traveler, you really want to be looking at what are the companies doing right now. If they are looking at their product, will their product be in demand after the crisis is over? What is going on with the processes? Perhaps we have been talking about processes more than ever before, really thinking about how to put in place new health and safety standards and things like that. But then there is the whole aspect of the business model. Will it still be viable or not? And while this is a very scary moment for many, I think it's also a great place to think about innovation and really to move people from just thinking about the product innovation to thinking about improvements again in the processes or in the business model itself. And then on top of that, again, go really back on the idea of purpose, because even if you have a perfect product and really streamlined processes and a good business model, it might not be enough in this time and age, especially as we go through something so global as this coronavirus pandemic. People might just be looking for somebody who just offering something very meaningful and who's very mindful about how they do things and how they move about their reasons for doing what they're doing. So yeah, as I say, look at your product, look at your processes, look at the business model, again, from the perspective of the consumer. Look at what are the companies doing. For us in the hospitality industry, it's very, very, very difficult. We have some aspects of the industry that are really hurting a lot. For example, the MICE segment, that's the segment of meetings, incentives, conferences, and events. That's a tough one, and that's going to be at a large disadvantage after the crisis is over. So if you're running that type of business, you really want to be thinking of how you're gonna make your living over the next couple of years, even for a longer period. A lot of businesses have moved to Zoom conferences, to this type of webinars, and some of them might stay there indefinitely. However, people will still want physical conferences, conventions, and seminars to take place, but they will be cautious for a while due to the reputation damage that might follow should something undesirable occur, if there is a new outbreak or something like that. So while people individually traveling might have easier time making decision to move on and to travel, for companies to start booking large conference spaces, it might be a bigger reputation damage. So they really might take time to start doing something like that. So you really then, if you're a product provider and you have this particular product, you really want to be thinking about moving into something temporarily different, diversifying, perhaps kind of a well-being retreat center or anything that can work for your place, so that you can still have a product that you can put on the market more targeted towards individual travelers. same when it comes to process innovation. You really you really want to be focused on the reputation and in putting in place those health and safety standards. And eventually, this whole thing might bring, even as I said, question of the business model, but that's a big question that we will leave for some other time. So the idea of one of the ideas of today's presentation was to discuss about the predictions of after what will happen after the coronavirus pandemics. And the thing that we know for sure, and that's a good news, that one day it will be over. We don't know when it will be over, and we know that it's not gonna go back exactly to the way it was before, and it certainly will not look like it was in 2019, at least for a while. And depending how long it takes, we have a whole new generation growing up in this time, so it might actually take a bit longer to recover. When we are talking about predictions in the post-corona travel and tourism, I kind of like to just say that this is how those predictions pretty much look like. It's a blank piece of paper, and I don't assume that I know and I can tell you, yes, this is what's going to happen. Because nobody really knows what's going to happen. However, we just have to try and think about some predictions. For example, it does seem that a lot of things that were happening that were taking over 10 years or 20 years are now really speeding up, and they will be affecting the industry as well. And for example, the cash seems to be running its historic course in many parts of the world, and this is something also that a lot of us need to be thinking about. We can see that, for example, online shopping is really going haywire, really flourishing. So how is that going to affect hospitality industry? How is that going to affect travel? We see that online schooling is really has taken a big has kind of it's been working quite well in many countries. And I mean, this what we are doing today is the way that many classes have been taking place. So I think that all of you at RIT, for example, are still all online. So we don't know, is that going to affect, and in which way it's going to affect our industry, and how is that going to affect our businesses? For example, something that we see is also this whole mentor-mentee counseling is really becoming again a new form of high-end education. The mental health jobs going in high demand, and all these predictions from other industries are something that's going to inform also the changes that will come into our industry. But these are all of these that I've listed are mainly positive ones. But there are many negative predictions, like I pointed out here. It seems that the climate actions are right now a little bit on the side. They don't have their own, they don't have so much space because there is a bigger problem. And obviously in the hierarchy of problems, some things just go up and that has gone down. So that's not good because they are losing, those actions are losing its potency. Some are even saying that the green energy is losing its position again back to the fossil fuels. I don't know, but that might again affect our industry very much. And we are seeing that there is a rising antagonism between some of the large countries in the world that's going to affect greatly travel and trade and world tourism. So all of these things that we are looking at in terms of global predictions from other industries are informing us in a way what is going to happen with the industry, with the hospitality and travel industry, and the predictions that we can see in that part. So talking
Zoran,
about yes.
I'm sorry. I just wanted to ask one question. With your new resort opening, Are you feeling that you have an opportunity there to be more nimble because it's not open yet, or is it all about the challenge of trying to open something in a new environment?
Well, in part, our property was in a way set up with the it's a very high-end product with a lot of space per guest. So the ratio of space per guest is very high. So, and then highest possible health and safety standards. So we are ready to receive guests, but that doesn't matter if they are not allowed to travel, if they have to stand at the border for 4 hours to pass the border, if they have to be 4 hours before the flight at the airport. So there is only so much we can do as a final destination, as a final provider, before the guest decides to come to us. So yeah, our property, we are ready. We are ready with our mindful luxury concept, with our highest possible health and safety standards. And even Croatia has a good reputation coming out of this crisis. However, it depends on so many other things. And this is where we are talking now about the actual predictions. I'm hoping that, for example, my business will be the best suited for the quick recovery, because our target market are the affluent travelers, those who kind of belong into the category of high income, especially those. I don't know if the audience, if people from the audience have heard of one cool acronym called Henry's. High income, not rich yet, people in the late 30s, 40s, early 50s. We are really expecting that they will be leading the rediscovery of traveling. And that leisure segment will be definitely the first one to recover. As I already mentioned, the part of the industry that will suffer the most is the one in the MICE segment, the meetings and seminars, conferences, and events, mainly because of the reputation that companies may suffer if they decide to engage in some in activities like that. Again, in terms of price sensitivity, we are expecting that the upper middle and entry luxury segments be the ones to come back first. We are also expecting a kind of a price war when it comes to the mass tourism, because a lot of destinations in the world are hurting very much now, and this is the only thing they know, is pretty much to reduce prices. So what I know from the industry very well is that we can expect 2021 to be a complete mess, because so many travel arrangements and large events from 2020 have been postponed to 2021. So that's going, and there are those who actually want to do things in 2021 on top of those that have been moved from 2020. So I don't expect that in the luxury segment, especially, or in the upper middle and entry luxury and luxury segments, things to become cheaper, at least not in 2021, because everybody who has paid things for 2020 and wanted to move it to 2021 has pretty much filled up those accommodations, and there will that's unlikely what people expect, that because of the businesses will just reduce those prices, especially in the high-end segment. Next, when it comes to privacy, it does seem that like villas and small boutique hotels will be in high demand, and we can expect obviously something quite obvious, that these over-touristic, overcrowded destinations will take longer time to recover compared to more remote, yet accessible destinations. So, for example, in my case of the island of Hvar and our property, we are really thinking that we are promoting ourselves in the way that we are remote yet accessible, because Split Airport is only 2 hours away from almost any large airport in Europe, and then we pick up guests directly at the airport and take them in 1 hour to the property. So that's kind of something that will probably work for many of these high-end travelers. Also, what we are seeing is a large increase in long-term stays, as opposed to many short-term travels that were trending over the past few years, because people will be motivated to reduce the number of travel legs and exposure to large airport hubs and airplanes. So instead of traveling 4 or 5 times a year at a short term stays, it does seem that they will be looking to travel one long term stay. So that's something that is also becoming quite obvious.
Soren, we do have a couple of other questions here, if we can take a minute. And one of the questions, I believe we do have some faculty members from the RIT hospitality programs online. So I'm hoping perhaps you can answer some of this in the chat box, because I think it's more information that you would know. And that is, how is RIT going to structure their program going forward for current and future students? Given that the job outlook is bad for current employees, what skills will be taught that could be marketable when they graduate? And Zoran, you may have some thoughts on the skills that are needed going forward as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very good question. Even though I'm not a member of the faculty, I don't know what is RIT going to do, how they're going to structure their programs moving forward. But I really think everything is so much about soft skills, communications, and I take a lot of inspiration from these days from Eastern religions like Buddhism, and mindfulness, mental health, mental strength. There is so much that we have to take into consideration today, as opposed to just a year ago when we were taking so many things for granted. So I would definitely focus so much on soft skills moving forward.
Terrific. Another question: do you feel that travel to Croatia will be dependent on the development of a vaccine?
Not for the travel within European Union. I don't know what will be for the intercontinental travel, but within EU, I really think for this summer we are opening again. So whether currently you can come to Croatia freely if you have proof of accommodation. So if you have your confirmation letter from a hotel, you can come to Croatia. You don't have to have absolutely anything else. You don't have a proof that you have had coronavirus, that you are immune, nothing. I mean, you just prove that you have a confirmation letter, get on the plane or in the car and come to Croatia. Currently, we have now been having several days in a row with 0 cases. So whether it's to do with the summer and the heat or something else, or I don't know, or we are just super resistant here, I have no clue. I'm really not an expert in epidemiology, but it does seem that we are doing fine.
So then that probably ties into the next question, which is, do you think that there will be a window for travel in late summer or early fall before the flu season strikes?
Well, I can tell you from the first hand, from the number of requests that we have from travel agents, that there is a big demand for, let's say, from mid-July to mid-October. So yeah, we are expecting a strong window for travel, end of July, August, September, and hopefully well into October. And this is one of the things that I was really pushing to kind of postpone the season, to recover the lost months from April and May into kind of well into October and November. But unfortunately, I didn't find much support in my travel community and in Croatian bureaucracy to move this motion forward, that we really focus on postponing the travel. So postponing the season, as we are calling it.
Yeah. And then one more question: how much do you factor in local tourism as part of your business model? I feel that people may be more amenable to local destinations as opposed to a large international journey. Should lodgers be turning their destination marketing to local audiences?
If you're living in a country that has a good domestic market, certainly. Croatia is a small country. We are some 4 million people, and the number of people that can afford, well, actually, it's not even about affording. A lot of people in Croatia own their own properties, either on the islands or in the mountains. So they are not frequenting, when it comes to lodging, at least, they are not frequenting hotels much. They are using restaurants, but it's no matter what we do, we wouldn't attract them if they have their own properties. So that's if you're living in a country that has a lot of domestic travel, and domestic market is definitely something that will be recovering first. That's not a big discovery on my part. So that's something that I would be focusing very much if I was, for example, in the United States or in Germany, in these countries that can just turn it around and instead of those people who are traveling abroad, keep them at home. So.
All right, let's go back to your travel predictions.
All right. So people may wonder, based on what we talk about, these predictions, and I usually like to point out these two type of emotions that we use for marketing, and those type of emotions are those that people usually use to base their decisions when traveling, not just when traveling, but when informing a lot of their decisions when purchasing things. But let's stick to traveling right now. So those are promotion emotions, the emotions of self-elation, recognition, excitement, delight, satisfaction, and prevention emotions of risk reduction, absence of problems, absence of discomfort. So back in 2019, which now feels so far away, we would focus almost entirely, especially as operators of luxury properties and high-end restaurants and high-end hotels, we would focus almost entirely on promotion emotions. Really trying to push people to not push people, but get people thinking about this importance of acquiring new knowledges and new experiences. And that really those kind of storylines have dominated the travel world over the past couple of decades. And there was always a percentage of people that were motivated by prevention emotions and wanted really focused on the ease of use, on the absence of problems. However, right now, the promotion emotions might not really work at all. It's all about prevention emotions and really telling people that they will be taken care of, that their entire customer journey has been dissected and has been, every single step of the way has been planned so that they really have that sense of security, that confidence, that they can embark on this journey. And I'm talking here obviously about the that 90% of the travelers. I'm not talking about 5% early adopters for whom none of these things matter, and they would want to travel in the middle of the crisis and doesn't matter. I'm talking about the larger chunk of travelers, and they will definitely be for some time very much motivated by prevention emotions. And this is something that's very important for the providers to think about this health and safety, as opposed to telling some amazing, mesmerizing stories and experiences that travelers can have in their properties or in their countries and destinations. It's really about putting forward, building confidence in health and safety. I can show you what we are doing. We are trying, let's say, to lead the way in this as well. Almost 2 months ago, we announced we announced an opening for health and safety leader, and added that position to the senior management of the hotel and of our company, and brought on board a medical doctor, which is kind of unusual for a hotel to have a medical doctor on board in the senior management. And she is really helping us put together all of those standards in place, so that we can ensure that guests are treated, not just guests, but staff and the guests, because I don't know what would be worse. If all of our staff gets, for example, virus and we can't operate, then we have 0 people on board. So even if the guests want to come, we would have nobody to provide service for them. So we are as much trying to create processes, meaningful processes, both for the guests and for the staff, for the local community, for all the stakeholders. But the thing is that all of these things that we're putting in place really have to make sense to everybody. Otherwise it really becomes difficult to move forward. So eventually, when talking about predictions, I just wanted to say that, again, something that I did not discover, but I really expect that the change will come from summer, from none of these things that I've spoken about. So think about, and the one thing that I, during this crisis, that really made me think was that craziness about buying toilet paper. I don't know if, I'm sure you've all seen how the whole world has gone crazy about buying toilet paper, and I was like, okay, what's going on there? And I've researched, and I'm sure some of you know this already, but that's something that's called zero risk bias. People are trying to eliminate those small unrelated risks that make them feel like they're in control again, starting like, hey, are there some zero risk biases associated with our industry? And yeah, it's quite interesting. I mean, I'm not going to reveal here now much more, but it does seem that a lot of people will be eliminating things along the way that you would not expect them to be eliminated right now, and that's kind of very, very, very interesting. At least I find it interesting.
Terrific.
And
So,
for the
I'm sorry.
yeah,
I just
please.
want to remind everyone that if you do have other questions for Zoran, you can enter them in the chat box or in the question area. Please continue.
Thank you. And the one thing that I want, I guess, to finish with, as we are now 47 minutes into the presentation, into the webinar, is that the travel will return, and I think really this experiential travel that I was personally very much enforcing will be returning very strong. It might take a little time for it to return, but it's gonna come back. And traveling is actually very healthy, so we kind of have to promote the idea that for the world to get healthy again, we need to recover to traveling. And I actually found even psychological research conducted by Cornell University that's shown that traveling, especially the one based on the experiential traveling, or anything hallmarked by experiential rather than material purchases, does indeed make one a better person, and in terms of betterment of a sense of gratitude and generosity, and that can even kind of have a trickle down effect to the larger community. So I really want to encourage people to travel, for the operators to be smart about how they put their processes in place so that it's as safe as possible, and eventually to be kind. To be kind to all of those who are in this industry, because we actually have no clue what we are doing, and most of the people actually have no clue what we are doing or what they are doing. I mean, we've seen from the presidents to the smartest people in the world when it comes to epidemiology and science, giving completely different information and different recommendations. So if they can't figure it out, I don't think that we can assume that we're gonna know it all. So we just kind of have to be here a little bit more kind to each other as we go through the process, and help each other by assuming kindness and assuming sometimes not even having enough knowledge and understanding instead of malevolence, because there will be a lot of weird things happening as we move back to restoring the travel after the once the coronavirus pandemic is over. So that's my, let's say, that's my closing message for the whole community. Just be kind.
I think that's a good message for every industry. So one last question. Do you see the restoration of hospitality coming as an across-the-board build-up covering every sector, or are you seeing some sectors that will have to open first and become strong for the other sectors to be able to participate? So you're talking about hotels, you're talking about restaurants, you're talking about tourist destinations, museums, and so on and so forth. And then you're talking about the actual transportation back and forth into these areas. Are you seeing that everything needs to just come up at once, or are you thinking that certain parts of the hospitality industry will need to be online first for everything else to follow?
I mean, the travel itself, the transportation part obviously has to come back first, a bit stronger than it is right now, because it is difficult for people to move places right now. There is only so much you can reach by car, so the transportation has to come back first. When it comes to the lodging, obviously it is expected that city hotels will also be coming back quite strongly, because the will have to restart, and that's that part of that. As I started saying, that the only two global activities are trade and travel, and trade needs people to move around and they need to stay in the hotels. So the city hotels will be starting first, and then everything that has to do with leisure will slowly follow, but first in the higher echelons, you know, starting with this upper middle and entry luxury segments, and then after that the mass market.
Okay. Question: what has been your strategy in dealing with your team and employees during these times and as you prepare for the return of guests?
That's a very good question. So we really focused on everybody staying as healthy and sane as possible. There was we have continued communication between ourselves as much as possible, and given a platform for everybody in the team to do what they really like. So there was very little tasks that had a timeline on to it attached. So it was mainly quite loose, very loose management. I just allowed people to find their own time, find their own strength. We had a lot of understanding for those who were dealing with the process in a difficult way. I mean, you had people who had to be at home with kids, so this is not really work from home, it's work from home with kids. So there was a lot of things that people had to figure out, and you know, so we just allowed them time to figure that out on their own. We offered support and allow them to do things that are not really their own job descriptions. So we've had, for example, people who were every day offering yoga classes, Pilates classes, mindfulness meditation classes. So whatever was one's interest was given a platform to practice it, and the team would participate, and we are We are some 40 people strong between the two companies. So there was a lot of interesting inputs from people, and we've come out quite strong. I mean, we consider that we've come out because now we are moving normally in Croatia. People are here. Most of us are on the island. So I feel that we've done a good job, but only time will tell.
Okay, and we have time for one last question. Referencing the toilet paper story, what kind of unexpected habits do you believe travelers will disregard in the future?
So, for example, I was thinking a lot about the idea of handling cash. You know, going to a lot of countries, you need to have cash, and people might just decide, okay, I'm not going to travel to a place that doesn't accept credit cards, because instead of that's just a little issue that I don't want to be dealing with. You know, so there are a lot of these little things that you just decide, okay, you know, I have this big thing in front of me. I might get a virus on the way, and in that country I have a good health system and everything, but how about I don't want to deal with these three little issues that otherwise I would not even notice, and those kind of things, reductions in risk I'm talking about. And I don't even know where they all can come from, because everybody has their own. But we've seen, like, for example, with that one, because I like to use that example just because it was so obvious, and everybody was just laughing at people for buying toilet paper. But there was something in it, you know. It's not for nothing. It's not that people are just crazy. It made them calmer. It made them more safer in their environments. It felt like they have done something, and we might see something like that in translating into other industries. Obviously not at that level, but on a more personal level.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Zoran, for a look at the future for this incredibly important industry sector. If anyone does have additional questions, you can email them to ritalum@rit.edu, and we will direct your questions to Zoran. All audience members will receive an email from us in about a week with a link to today's webinar recording. And you can see a full listing of upcoming virtual events like today's webinar at rit.edu/alumni/tigers-staying-home for a listing of all upcoming virtual events. We do have several each week, and we'd like to include you in as many as possible. So Zoran, thank you again so much for your information, and we hope everything is well and that you're welcoming guests to all of your destinations very soon. Please, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, thank you very much for this opportunity. And if anybody from the community would like to get in touch, you have all the information there in the chat. And if you are planning a visit to Split or Hvar, please do let me know, and I'll be more than happy to at least share a glass of wine.
That's terrific. Thank you so much. So for everyone online, you will exit the webinar just by closing your browser window, and do let us know what you thought of the webinar through a brief survey that you will receive via email. Have a wonderful rest of your week, and please, everyone, stay healthy.